Good morning, Rowan. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How about you?
Absolutely fantastic. I mean, come on, dude. With a name like Rowan Jacobson, I mean, that's like Indiana Jones. You are living up to that name.
That's funny. Like, yeah, when you're a little kid, you don't like you having a weird name, but then you grow into it eventually.
And grow into it you have. I mean, look at what you have done throughout your entire career.
Thanks.
You know, Rowan, I've always said that if chocolate were discovered today, it would be called illegal. And because it does things to people in a good way as well as a very bad way. And that's what's great about obsessions with wild chocolate is the fact that you're exposing something to the rest of the world that, wow, we did not know.
Yeah, I mean, chocolate is a drug for sure. It's just like it's a gentle, happy drug.
You call it the God level chocolate, which you guys went in search of. I mean, it's like, okay, did you get to taste it? Because all the podcast episodes are not up there yet, dude.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, it started. It was when I first got a taste of it when that first bar of wild chocolate came out, like 12 years ago. I was like, holy cow, what is this stuff? And then that sort of began the journey to go find it.
What led to the podcast in the way that, I mean, I understand that you're a journalist and you like the investigative reporting and doing the stories and stuff like that, but there was something that you had to have heard in your heart that said, yep, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly. So I had like I said, I had tasted that bar of wild chocolate years ago, and it thought it was incredible. And had always kept that in the back of my mind. And then I had just recently learned that other people have gotten excited about it and have actually found more varieties of wild cacao growing in the Amazon. So now is this kind of like Indiana Jones style hunt underway to go into the jungle and find these varieties of cacao and make really unusual chocolate out of them. So I was like, that sounds fun. I want to be part of that.
Does the average person understand where chocolate comes from? Because I think it just comes from the grocery store. It grows there, right?
Yeah, right. No, nobody even realizes chocolate. It's made from the seeds of this tree that grows in the rainforest called cacao. So the cacao tree has these pods on it that look almost like little Nerf footballs, or delicata squash or something. And so you open up the pod and there's these seeds inside, and you have to ferment and dry the seeds and then roast them like you would coffee and then grind them. And that's what chocolate is. So yeah, chocolate is the seeds of this tree, and nobody realizes that.
Do you ever sit there and wonder who was the first to open up that little pod and to do exactly what you just explained? Somebody had to have started that journey.
Yeah, and some genius thousands of years ago. Yeah, so archaeologists keep finding older and older evidence, but right now the oldest they have is from about 5,000 years ago in Ecuador, I think, where they found these pots that have chocolate residues in them. So they know that at least 5,000 years ago, the people in Ecuador were drinking chocolate.
Wow.
But the thing, like, so those pods, those fruit pods, like, they've got the seeds inside, but they've got this pulp around them that's delicious. It's kind of sweet. It tastes almost like lemon or lychee or mango or something. So probably what happened is people were just eating the pulp for a long time and spitting out the seeds.
Yep.
Which they still do in the Amazon. And then, maybe like around the campfire one night, somebody threw the seeds in the fire and the fire burned out. And the next morning they're like, huh, those things are kind of toasted now. I wonder if they're edible, and somebody tasted one and was like, this isn't so bad.
Oh my God!
And then it all began.
This reminds me so much of, I have gumball trees here in the South, and they used to travel from Asia to come and get the gumball because that's what they chewed on. But nowadays, if you walk through anybody's yard, they're gonna say gumball tree, that's a junk tree, but it's not. When you open up those little thorny things, my God, there's gum in there, dude.
Wow. And do you have to do anything to it, or can you just eat it straight up?
Well, yeah, I do. Because I came from the day of just eating everything natural. I'll eat a potato fresh from the dirt. So I don't know if you're supposed to do anything or not, but I do. And it's like I've got wild grapes out here. I don't do anything with them, but I just eat them.
Yeah, I eat wild grapes too. Yeah.
And they're bitter as all can be, but you know what? It doesn't matter. The earth has given it to you, and I think that's one of the reasons why I'm so attracted to your podcast is that you, throughout your whole entire career, have always been about the earth and what it shares with us.
Yeah, totally. I love to forage for stuff, and I'm just amazed that you can just like eat all the stuff in nature, and it's kind of like a very direct way of learning about nature and experiencing it.
With your podcast, Obsessions, Wild Chocolate, Is there a side of you that fears the amateurs are going to try to make their way to the Amazon and, we're going to screw it all up when we do that?
I do worry about that with other things. In this case, it's a pain in the butt to make your way to the Amazon. So you got to really want to do it, like even the pros that I was tagging along with, like it's hard, you need boats, you need equipment, you got to work out deals with the people who live there because somebody's going to be picking all the pods and drying the beans. Even, if everything goes right, it's really hard.
I just have this vision when you talk about picking the pods and the seeds inside and stuff, because in Montana where I grew up, we used to grow sunflowers for the seeds. And I remember that, you had to dry them out and then you had to bake them. And yet when I see sunflowers today, people don't understand. Let that damn thing grow, man. There's seeds coming your way.
Right. And then you see the birds just going to town on sunflower seeds. And you're like, oh, yeah, that's what it's for.
One of the things that's really cool about your podcast is the fact that you really go into crashing into a major cocaine flyway. I mean, to me, it's like, oh, my God, he knew he was on some sort of adventure and he wasn't going to let go.
Yeah, it started so badly, and I was so ignorant. Like, I didn't do my research. If I'd done like a little homework, I would have realized that the area we were going into was like the cocaine trafficking center of the universe, but I didn't. So, yeah, within like my first 5 minutes in the Amazon, we had to do sort of an emergency landing in the small plane because it was the rainy season. All the runways were half underwater. So we picked this runway, this like little landing strip that had just been cleared in the jungle, and we landed, and it turned out that it belonged to these drug smugglers who had a cocaine lab there, and they weren't very happy that we just used their runway. And that, like in Bolivia, in that part of Bolivia, that's just like how stuff happens. It's a crazy place.
Did you whip out your journal and just start documenting it? Because I mean, this is the kind of stuff that stories 50 years from now are going to be jumping onto. They're going to go, oh my God, you're not going to believe it. It was all for chocolate too.
Yeah, so I was like, hey guys, if you just hold on with those guns, I think I get out my notepad. And no, but actually, so for the podcast, of course, like I'm there with my field recorder, so I'm trying to get audio of everything, and you'll hear that like in the show, you'll hear tons and tons of field audio in the moment all the time. But I was constantly, the anxiety was like, I know I'm just going to lose all my equipment over the side of the boat at any moment, or like the rains are going to sweep it away. Like there was working with like electronics in the Amazon is never comfortable.
How did you recharge your batteries, or did you even have to bring extra batteries and stuff? Because I mean, that stuff really drains, the juice from that system.
Yeah, I brought just a bunch of extra batteries. But I was using this field recorder. It's called an H2N Zoom.
That's me. That's me. That's exactly me. Yep. I've got one.
It's an amazing. It's an old device. It's been around for what 20 plus years. Yep. But it is amazing in that it uses very little battery power. It's tough, and it gets pretty good sound quality considering like sort of how old school it is. Yeah. So I actually found that to be just an awesome device to use for that kind of situation.
Did you turn off the top two microphones on top? Because what I do is I turn those off and I use the bottom plugs because I just want to have total control of the left-right channels.
Oh yeah. So often like I had so little control in the environment that I didn't want to get any more fidgety than I had to. So I just had it on sort of like the XY, like the crossed microphone. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, I'll tell you, and that explains why I feel like that I'm listening to NPR when I hear your podcast, because the quality is there because I can hear the atmosphere behind you. And that's part of the star of this story, dude. When I can hear the background, you took me somewhere.
Yeah, and that's all just there. When I was listening back to it as the episodes have been coming out, that was one of the things that struck me is like, wow, there's always some crazy bird going in the background, and that's not sound design. Those are just the birds that are there,
See that, and you can't find that in a production library. You can't say, "Go get that bird sound and put it in the background." No, that's the authenticity of what you're doing.
Yeah, in fact, now I should actually just start selling some of those sounds because some of the craziest ones didn't even make it into the show. They're just like in the library there.
So now in post-production, when you've got all of this sound, how do you put each episode together? Because when you start at number one and work your way up, there's an unbelievable storyline going on there. How do you know, as the person that lived it, now you have to share it?
Yeah, and honestly, that was by far the most painful part of the experience. Like, it was 2 months getting the material and then 6 months
Yep.
dealing with the material. I mean, and as you know, that's just how it goes.
Wow. Do you break it down and put it in files in the computer? I mean, what do you do? I mean, because you have long tracks and talking moments and stuff like that. I mean, how do you know where to grow?
Yeah, so you upload all the files are there, and you go through it, and then you start to build, like, figure out what are your little set pieces, like what are the best pieces of audio that you want to work with.
Yep.
Because the voiceovers you can always do, you can do anytime. So you sort of build it. But it was sort of a challenge. I'd never tried to tell like one contiguous story, 8 half-hour episodes in audio before, right? And like, I know how to do it in print, but it's very different doing it in audio. So I had to just sort of keep experimenting with, like, what worked, what didn't, how chronological do you have to be, like, how, like, will the listener be able to stick with you if you're hopping around in time? All that kind of stuff. And I had some great producers who could do the heavy lifting on the actual sound integration part of it.
Well, the fact that you keep it at around 30 minutes is great, because I believe that it doesn't matter what city you live in, London, Seattle, or even Charlotte, every town is a 20-minute town. You're only 20 minutes away from where you really want to go. So 30 minutes is the perfect time for us to really dive into your podcast.
That's such a good line. Every town is a 20-minute town. That is so true. Yeah. That's you're right. That's and just the ear can only concentrate for that long,
Absolutely. Now, the personal question I need to ask you, and listeners are going to have to jump onto a Zoom with you sometime. Why are we seeing your back and not your face? What's going on? Are you a spy?
So that's that my wife took that photo. I'm actually staring at a Mark Rothko painting.
Oh, wow.
But and like Mark Rothko, it's those, like, totally abstract, just huge blocks of color. And what he always said to people is, like, you have to get super close to the painting and just be there for a while, and it'll start to change. So I'm standing like 6 inches away from that thing, and waiting for the painting to come to life, which it did do. All of a sudden, the colors start to kind of crawl. It's really weird. It takes like a while, like 4 or 5 minutes. But anyway, my wife liked the way it was all lining up. So without my knowledge, she snapped that photo behind me.
Well, isn't that what podcasting is too? Because I mean, you first go into a podcast, like the first episode, and you're going, okay, I'm getting into this, but you stay there long enough, and by the time you get up to the third episode, you're going, oh my God, I'm really starting to see this now.
Yeah, and that was the hope here, is that because it is a long story and it kind of keeps getting deeper and more complex as you go. So the hope was that people will hang there into episodes, 2 and 3, when it really starts to grab hold. Mm-hmm. It's like a novel, but I think, right now in podcasting, there's also a fear that everybody only has a 3-minute attention span. And if you don't get them in the first 3 minutes, they're gone. So you got to balance all those things. So we tried to throw lots of, like, plane crashes and drug runners into the first 3 minutes to try to keep people from going elsewhere.
Is there a side of your personality, because you've been to the Amazon and you've experienced it with the wild chocolate and stuff, that you would like to sit down with Volker Lehman and say, okay, dude, I think you're addicted to this. Okay, 20 years into this search, dude. I mean, come on now. Come on. You're really addicted to this journey.
Hey, yes, for sure. Like, as soon as things start to stabilize and it starts to become a normal business, he then immediately, like, does something so that he has to go back in and, like, go on another crazy journey where everything is at risk.
What is he looking for? Well, even you, if you go back, what are you looking for? What can top that great flavor?
Yeah, and it's like and what has everyone always been looking for in the Amazon? You go all the way back to the days of the conquistadors. Percy Fawcett, the explorer who disappeared looking for the lost city of Z. Like, everyone goes, it's that Indiana Jones thing where, like, there's sort of this promise that you're going into this super intense environment and there's going to be some sort of revelation upriver, that you're going to get to, and you do, like.
I'm sorry.
What I found was that, like, you don't get the gold. Like, everyone always goes there looking for gold.
Right.
And if you're thinking the gold is just going to, like, jump out in front of you, you're probably going to be mistaken. But what you find is, like, that you do have this like new take on experience because you've had this incredibly sensory um, experience going on for days or weeks or whatever, and that's the real gold, is that journey.
Does it screw with the mind? Do you have those visions late at night? You're sitting there listening to the sounds of the Amazon, and you're going, "Tomorrow's the day, man. I'm feeling it. Tomorrow's the day."
Yeah, well, but then there's also so many friggin' bugs
Yeah.
all around. That also screws with the mind. So you get into a defensive crouch at the same time where you're like, I'm just gonna survive one more day.
Listeners, you need to understand that Stettler Chocolate is a huge part of this in the way that they donate part of their profits to protect the Amazon forest. I didn't know that until your podcast.
Yeah, so this is an arrangement that they made with Luisa Abram, who's the chocolate maker in Brazil, who's one of the main characters in the story. And Luisa's whole business is to work with the native groups that are in the Amazon to they harvest the chocolate, and her proceeds go back into the jungle to support their lifestyles. And Stettler has now teamed up with Luisa, where they're bringing this chocolate to the U.S. And selling this package. So yeah, it's that's part of the beauty of the whole thing is that it's this. Not only do you get to experience these unique and delicious chocolates, but you get to support a living rainforest and the people who live there at the same time.
Do you find yourself being a chocolate connoisseur?
I think so. Yeah.
Really?
Like I'm not snobby about it, but once you taste really well-made chocolate, you start to realize how poorly made the cheap stuff is,
Yeah.
and you can't really go back to it very easily.
Dude, I can tell that just by jumping into a Snickers bar. It's like as a kid, it was like the greatest thing on the planet. But you're right, there are so many great pieces of chocolate out there now that when you go to a Snickers bar, nothing against the bar, it's just there is a difference.
There is. One of the things I did at one point, I'd been eating this really, really good chocolate, and I always start to, like be suspicious of my own, like, am I just getting fooled here? So
Yeah.
I went back and bought a Hershey's, the first Hershey's bar I bought, like outside of making s'mores in years, just a straight up Hershey's bar. And I was just like, all right, what's this going to taste like? And I have to say, it was really strange. It tasted a lot stranger than I expected.
Oh my God, you've turned into Gordon Ramsay.
Right, I know. It's like I hate to sound snobby, but that's weird. That stuff's weird.
To bring this story forward, I mean, you're opening up the eyes. It's almost like there's a book screaming at you to say, write me. Because, I mean, there's a lot of wine encyclopedias out there. Is it time for a chocolate encyclopedia designed by you?
I think there does need to be a chocolate encyclopedia. There are people who know more about it than I do. So actually a couple people that I interview in the show, like these chocolate experts, they do have this encyclopedic knowledge of this stuff, like where it all grows, like what are the best ways of making it. They know it all. And I've actually been encouraging them to sort of, put it down on the page. And they also have great photos. So there's a great book to be made. You're right.
Yeah. When you're out there in the Amazon, when do you know it's time to turn on the microphone? Because you can't let it play all the dang time.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've had this experience too. That's another anxiety provoking like deal is like how do you not miss the good parts? And one answer is to record way too much.
Yeah.
But it never then inevitably like 3 hours later, at the moment you decide to turn off your recorder, then the good thing's going to happen.
The monkey jumps in. Yeah.
every time. It's amazing. So yeah, you get better, and I wasn't very good at this at first. I'm still working on it, I think, but you get better at sort of anticipating, starting to sense that something's going to happen. And like the good podcasts, like they get the greetings, right? Like everyone's figured out that you start recording before you like walk up and introduce yourself to whoever's, because it sounds good to get those early remarks. It sort of helps put people in the moment in a way.
Oh yeah, because you learn the fine art of learning how to set people up. You know where you want to go.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
So
Yeah.
is your mantra, because I love this. I love this a part of your podcast, and I picked up on this, and man, I've written a lot about it. Trying to do something great in a world that bites back. My God, that's incredible.
Yeah, and that's what I really admire in people. Like, it's not for like if you do it all right, yeah, there's some financial, like you'll be able to make a living maybe, but so many people that I've written about and or recorded, they're not in it for the money. They're just doing this thing because they want to create something like authentic and
Yep.
interesting and good, you know. And I think that's what drives so many of the most interesting people out there.
Wow, dude, I'm so proud of you for doing this. I mean, and I can't wait till you create other podcasts and grow things forward because you just have this amazing way of sharing stories.
Well, thanks. I really appreciate that.
You got to come back to the show anytime in the future, dude. The door is always going to be open for you.
Thank you. I'd love to. Yeah, great conversation.
All right, man. You be brilliant and go have some chocolate, okay?
You too.
Bye.
All right, take care.